Okay, so today we're going to look at surface area and volume of composite 3D figures. And what that means with composites is a lot like with 2D figures. You're taking multiple shapes and you're putting them together. So as you look through some of these pictures, you can see that we're taking different shapes and putting them together. Looking at surface area, remember surface area is the outside. So when you think about how to find the surface area of these composites, you have to think about almost in terms of like if you were going to paint it. If you were going to paint this first figure, you would paint everything but what I shaded in blue, because you're not going to paint something that's not going to be seen. When you go to find the surface area, you find the area, but then you have to take out those faces that you're not going to see, or in terms of if you're thinking painting, you would paint. Now with this one, if you look at the steps here, I went ahead and wrote out the steps. We would find the, step one, find the area of the triangular prism. So you can see the base. I found the perimeter of it, I found the area of it, and I plugged in my formula, and I got the 175.4. But in that prism, I'm not going to paint that bottom rectangular face. So the bottom rectangle is 8 by 4, which means it has an area of 32. So I'm going to take that 32 away from the 175, and that gives me the 143.4. Now I'm going to find the area of the prism, the rectangular prism at the bottom. Again, I look at my base. I went ahead and used the 8 by 4 at the bottom. I found my perimeter, my area, plugged it in, and got the 184. But again, we're not going to use the top part of that rectangular prism. So you have to take the 32 away from that also. So when they're stacked like that, you have to take into consideration a face from each shape. So once you take both of those faces you're not going to paint away, then you can add your two areas together. And that's why at the bottom I did the 143.4 plus the 152, and that gave me a total surface area of 295.4. Volume's a lot easier because you're just finding the volume and putting it together. You could have to add with volume, or I'll show you here in a minute where you might have to subtract with volume. But you're not having to think about taking off certain pieces. You're just finding the total volume and adding or subtracting. So you can see how I found the volume of this composite figure, the volume of the triangular prism, the volume of the rectangular prism, and then I added them together. Okay, looking at the next one. We're going to look at these cones. Now, let's look at what I did. I didn't do all the math here, but really you guys can handle that part. You need to think about what part of the formulas are we not going to use. Well, if we're just doing surface area, because that's what it says in the question, we're going to do the left cone first and then the right cone. But when you put them together, you're not including the bases. So you have to take the base away from the left cone and the base away from the right cone. And then once you do that, you can take that out of the formula and not have to worry about it. Then you can add your two areas together. And if you can think about what part you're taking out of the formula to begin with, that might make it a little bit easier. Otherwise, find your total surface area, take the part that you're not painting out. And again, I shaded that in blue. On the next one, we see that we have a hemisphere, half a sphere. So I use the formula for surface area of a sphere, 4 pi r squared. Just cut that in half, find that area. Then with the cylinder, you're using everything but the top base. So that's why I marked out the 2, because you still need 1b. You still need the area of the bottom base, but you take the 2 off because you don't need the top base. Once you took that 2 out, then you can add your two areas together and you have your correct answer. Volume, again, pretty easy. You're just finding the volume of the two pieces and adding them together. But just make sure, because you're doing half of a sphere, that you take away, that you divide the volume in half first. And the last one that we're going to look at here is this one. See how before the other examples, we glued the shapes together. This last one, you're putting the pyramid inside the box. So that means when we get to volume, we're going to have to end up subtracting. So looking at surface area, we can see that the top is open, so things are being filled in that pyramid right there. So we would take out the base of the pyramid, because that's the top that's open. You would need to paint something that's open. Same thing with the prism. We're not painting the top because it's open. We would take the 2 off of that formula and then add them together. With volume, we're going to find the volume of the square pyramid or the rectangular pyramid, then find the volume of the rectangular prism, and then subtract because you're put the pyramid inside. So it'll be less volume when you put something inside of it because not as much water will fill up in that rectangular prism when you add the pyramid inside. And that is how you do composite figures.